What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. I'm wearing a nice shirt today. I'm going to a baby shower after I record this video. It's Saturday afternoon, midday-ish, and not a lot of roster news right now, so I want to take the opportunity to do our kind of next video in the offseason preview series. Let's talk about Atlanta FaZe. Kind of a mixed season. I think some wins, some losses, and it seems like they might make a change potentially this season. So let's talk about it, their options, and what they may do in this potentially chaotic offseason. All right, so for FaZe this season, after dropping Alec, after losing pretty handily to LA Thieves in the Vanguard Champs Finals last season, I would say they had a pretty decent season as far as like teams go. I think for them it's first or bust, but they didn't really place any lower than top third all season. They won at Boston. They lost in the grand final at Major 5 to New York, probably an event they should have won. And then at Champs, they lost again to New York in losers finals. So New York was kind of their bogey team at the end of the season. And you look like, listen, they were by far and away the most consistent team all season. Again, didn't place any lower than top three. A lot of other top teams like New York ended up winning the chip, had some bad events this season. But I think for the squad, even though once again they were first overall seed going into champs and didn't win, I do think this might be a moment for them to consider making another change to the roster. And I think really it's because if you take a look at the stats here on the screen, they were an insane S&D team. Like if we click over this S&D tab here, this is the overall S&D records for all teams this season. One team is clearly up top, so they were doing something right in search. But I think for FaZe, like being in this spot for Hardpoint, getting into the season being kind of 50-50, and Control being at 500, I just don't think is good enough for them and sort of where they want to be, which is back to sort of a Cold War type season, as hard as that's going to be. But they're a dominant team. They win a couple events, win champs, yada, yada, yada. I just think that this level that they're at right now is great. It's good, but I don't think that's where they want to be as a squad because they're trying to achieve, and they should be able to achieve greatness with the talent they have on their team. All right, so let's talk about the contract situation. So these are the 5 players on the team. So Nick Classic, the sub, they're all on 1+1s. Basically what Atlanta FaZe does every year is they pick up the team option, they negotiate a new contract, give everybody a raise, another 1+1, yada, yada, yada. So this gives them flexibility to release people in the offseason if they want. They generally don't do that. If someone leaves, they just get bought out for whatever amount, and so on and so forth. So no one's a free agent this season, and I expect them to likely pick up the option, everybody, unless, and I think Slash is a player who would likely get dropped here. They don't really think there's a buyout market, and they'll just let him walk. So we'll find out in a couple of days. I believe everybody's going to find out tomorrow about their team option situation. We'll see if Austin is going to tweet out like RFA, basically, he got his option picked up, and he's sort of free for someone to buy him out. And I think really that's where we're at. If I'm FaZe, is really 2 steps here. Do we run it back with Austin? I can see a world where that happens. I just think with the players available like Pred, Drazah, we'll get to those in a second, Envoy, etc., that they may explore option B, which is what is life like without Austin. Now, before we go any further, I expect Classic to come back on the squad. I think Nick fits good with the vibes, what they want. He's in the team room a lot. Like, I think he's really good for the morale and sort of what they like, and I expect him to run it back with him as a sub. So what will FaZe do for potentially this 4th spot on the roster? So there's 2 different paths for this part. There's, do we role swap or do we not role swap? So let's talk about the role swap thing, right? What happens if Simp moves to more of a flex role and you're going to pick up a sub to run alongside a BZ? So I think it pretty much comes down to 2 players. If you do that, it's Envoy or Pred. So I think both players kind of bring sort of different pros and cons to this team if they go down that route. I think Envoy would be a really good sub pair with the BZ because he's a little bit more of a methodical sub. I think going to play not as quick as a BZ, but he can be aggressive when need to, and he's going to do all the dirty work. He's going to have good comms. He's going to be a quality teammate and be S&D first, which is what this team wants to be. They know that they get to the end of the season. Yes, you want to be a dominant respawn team, but once you get to the level that like Champs is, it's going to be matchups, and you need your search to carry things. And although their search is good this season, the respawn not so much, especially Control at the end of the season. So I think Envoy can help with that. I also like the Pred pickup. I just think this one's a little bit more of a question mark, and let me explain why. I think Pred had an insane season. He's an insane talent. I think him and Abizi would be maybe the best submachine gun pair of all time in Call of Duty history, like pure gun skill, speed. Like, it'd just be really hard to play this team in all modes. I do think, though, someone on the team will have to take a back seat in this situation. Someone's going to have to run bomb occasionally. Someone's going to have to sit in hill. Someone's going to have to bait. And Pred and Abizi might take some time to figure that out. I think Envoy is a very plug-and-play option. I think Pred's got a higher ceiling, but I think Pred might be a little bit of a harder fit. I think it's a totally different team environment where Pred is coming in that he's used to maybe with Seattle. You know, one that's sort of an elite championship team, and he is a great player, but he's joining 3 other All-Stars. So he's not going to be like the clear number 1 option on the team, and he's going to have to find his way in that kind of a locker room situation. Now, I think they can figure it out because Chris and RJ and Pac are really good quality coaches, and I think they can figure out how to make things gel. I just think if you go down the Pred route, which is an option, it's just not maybe going to be an overnight thing in which you hit your ceiling. And I think the team would be okay with that. They sort of know by their standards that they're always going to be competitive at champs, and it's really the end of the season that's the most important. Okay, so I think those are 2 players if they go down sort of the simp kind of moving the flex route. I think Chris can run a flex. I don't think that's what I would do, but I think he can do it. There are obviously other sub players out there. I think Kismet's going to re-sign with New York, so I don't really see that as an option. I don't think you would go for someone like Snoopy and buy him out because that's a little bit of a risk. And I like Kleenex, and he might be available considering the Toronto situation, but I just think the Envoy and Predator are sort of better options considering they're available and free. All right, so there's 2 clear options. I think if you keep a BZ Simp sub duo and you pick up sort of a fast flex who's going to be really good in search. I think option 1, which requires no buyout, is Drazah. Now, okay, you're going to say to me, Ben, there's a lot of beef between FaZe and Drazah. How does this move happen? Look, I think when you get to this level, like obviously there's going to be beef when people are on different teams because they're trying to get a competitive advantage over each other. But I think once the ability of the team, or once, people kind of off squads and are looking to join, I think a lot of that gets kind of pushed aside and people are able to squash beef and move on. We've seen that a lot in Call of Duty history, and I can see it happening with Drazah and Abizi, Drazah and the rest of this team, because I think that Drazah in his day, when he plays his best, is one of the best flexes in the game. He's insane at search, a double-digit search player. I think this team is going to be like you thought their team at Austin was good in search. This team might be better or at the same level with Austin in search because of how good Drazah is. I think he's a little bit more mobile than Slasher is. I think it's going to make MC then sort of the slowest player on the team, which is probably what they want. And they're going to be impossible to play in that game mode. I also think Drazah is a little bit of a better control player than Austin. I think that's going to be kind of key. So for me, if we're going down the flex route, this is probably the option that I would go with. And I think this would make this team sort of already a dangerous squad, but I think they would be put this way. I don't think they're getting cheered at a lot of events next season if this team forms. Now, let's go with what I think is the crazy option. This is sort of in the last couple of days with certain movements on the Toronto side. This would also get them booed a lot is if this happens. Now, okay, I want to really put a caveat on this. This requires Scrappy to be bought out. I don't know what the cost is. I don't even know if Toronto is going to let him walk considering what's going on there. But if they did, and FaZe was able to agree to a price, I think it's over if this team forms. I legitimately think you can call the CDL, it's over, wrap it up. This team would just be impossible to play against. I think Drazah is very good, don't get me wrong. But I think Scrap played on a level this season. I think that Scrap is got the elite mindset to mesh well with the squad in the same way I think Drazah would. I think Scrap had a better season than Drazah. All a game mode type of player. He plays at such a high pace. In the mix, he's an active player. I think he's going to do and be able to be willing to do some of the dirty work when they kind of figure it out. I just think they would mesh really well. They'd be a hated team. Don't get me wrong. No one's going to want to play the squad. No one's going to like the squad that aren't Atlanta FaZe fans, but they would be like the most skilled team potentially of all time in COD. I'm sure some of you in the comments are going to debate that, but this would be a 6 squad. I just don't think it's going to happen, to be honest, because I assume his buyout's probably like $500,000 or something that's going to be dumb. So I think it basically is going to come down to choosing between these 3 players of your FaZe if you're going to make a move. I'm very curious who they decide to do. I don't know if they're in a rush to make a decision. I'm sure the players involved want to, but I think FaZe can take another 48 hours to really figure it out. But I think at some point early next week, middle of the week, we should hear on who they want to pick up. I probably said on stream yesterday it's 50-50 on Austin staying. It's probably more 60-40 that he leaves right now. Obviously, things can happen, but I just think with the players available on the market, FaZe is going to look at the season results, who's available, and decide to make a change. All right, that'll do it for this video. A fun conversation about Atlanta FaZe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. I think coming up in the next couple of days, we're going to continue this, kind of off-season preview. We'll cover the team option stuff once that lands and kind of talk about if there's any surprises there. Maybe we'll do a Q&A. A lot more stuff coming up on the YouTube channel, so make sure you stick around and subscribe. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.